So how do you know, like really know that you're ready for marriage? Are you speechless?
I'm still thinking about that question to this day.
You still don't know?
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into it. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Marriage Podcast, where we show you how to find and build a healthy marriage as a Muslim. I'm Zahra Hassan.
And I'm AJ, and we've been married for 3.5 years. And if you like our videos, please comment and subscribe. Ask your questions below, and you may feature in one of our videos.
And as a thank you, feel free to download our free compatibility guide for those of you who are searching for a spouse in the link below. And before we get to the question, we have a very special announcement. Very excited about that. So we mentioned last week that we launched our website.
Yes.
You did. Do you remember what the domain name was?
ZahraHassanCoaching.com.
That's correctly. That is the domain name. And because we're so excited about the website, I've also launched a product for young single Muslim women. So if you're a Muslim woman and you are exhausted by the process of having to search for a spouse in the jungle of today's marriage market, I have created for you the Single to Wifey Intensive Coaching Program, which is 6 weeks. That teaches you what I think that I've learned over the years are the two most important skills that speeds up the process of finding a compatible spouse. And for every person who signs up for this program, In Shaa Allah, during the month of July 2025, I'll just say that for future listeners. So everyone who signs up during this month will also get the premarital workshop $375 value free. If you sign up for the Single to Wifey this month, I will include a link below in the description. And so let's get to the question. So this week, unlike all of the other weeks, we have a question submitted to us through the form that you can find in our About section. Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the question. This is a gentleman. He says, I'm a Muslim American male, 21, still in school, soon to graduate in 2026, In Shaa Allah. As a born Muslim, it's been easy to obviously avoid haram things such as pork and alcohol, but recently I've started to crave companionship. A big part of me wants to start speaking with a potential marriage partner, most likely through family connections, but I'm also worried that I'll underestimate the commitment and responsibility that comes with it. I've been watching so many marriage counselors' videos to prepare myself to speak with someone, including you guys, of course. Is it corny to say that I want to fall in love? In the West, we're conditioned to marriage being a step you take for the person you've truly fallen in love with. So I think if I get into a talking stage, I'd want it to last for a minimum 6 months to truly gauge if we're compatible and actually in love to try and limit the potential for divorce. I'm scared that if I wait till my mid-20s to start seeking a spouse, there will be less patience in the talking stage, and I definitely don't want it to be like a job interview. I want it to be natural. Then I watched the podcast episode about how to know if she's a good woman and heard the stories of men getting divorced after marrying in their early 20s since their wives no longer enjoyed the marriage lifestyle. Paraphrasing, of course. I guess I'm trying to ask if I'm in the right mindset to try and seek marriage or if I should just wait. I'm currently in the mindset that starting off young gives me more time to find the one that I'm genuinely in love with and prevent me from rushing into anything. Jazaa K'Allah Khayr for taking the time to read this.
Wayaka.
Oh, iyak. All right, so what do you think about this young man's question?
I'll give him the same advice I gave my brother, who seems like he's the same age as him.
Okay,
right?
21.
Yeah. Well, what I told my brother, because my brother, he's going into either university or college. I don't exactly know where yet.
Yeah.
But he said he wanted to get a job, right? And I told him, no, don't do that. Don't get a job until you finish college or you go through your degree. Because if you get a job, getting a job is a commitment. And it's also difficult to balance a job as well as school at the same time. In so much that now, because you're living with your parent, right? what you should do is you should stay at home until you finish the college or university. And that will give you the most success in actually finishing the college or university, not dropping out.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Now, because you're going to be getting married, de facto, what that would mean is that you must also get a job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, to y'all out there, my sincere advice, at least in this modern Western world,
Yeah.
is to focus on your schooling and at the very least get a diploma or a degree or something that'll unlock potential future higher earning before you get married. All in all, the minimum that takes is like 3 years.
Yeah.
So if you have to delay for 3 years, I think that's what you should do, because that will make married life significantly easier for you.
Yeah.
Because a large portion of marriages do break down because of financial stress.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't want to start off on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I were to answer this brother's question with regards to what the focus should be, because it seems like his focus was making sure that he's fallen in love with the person that he's speaking to. I don't even think it needs to get to that stage of having fallen in love with the person. Because sometimes that's just really difficult to do if you're doing everything purely through the Islamic method.
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to get too attached.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not supposed to get passionate. It's supposed to be restraint.
Yeah.
Right up until you guys do have your nikah or you get married. At that point, that's when you can start being open with regards to any feelings of love.
Yeah. I agree with everything that you said. Right? It's very good advice. My younger brother, he's in his 30s now, but I remember giving him similar advice when he was just finishing school, just like this gentleman here. He says that he's still in school, but soon to graduate in 2026, In Shaa Allah. Yeah, In Shaa Allah. My advice was to be a little bit more established, so that you can really focus on your marriage without worrying so much about trying to balance a new job or school or etc. So that's good advice, just good practical advice, and I agree with that. What if this brother comes back and says, I've just graduated, right? Because he's about to graduate, inshallah. So let's say he comes back in 6 months and says, hey, I've just graduated. I feel like I need a 6-month period of time buffer in order to get to know somebody, because that's what he said before. And everything else that I've said still stands. Should I start looking for a spouse?
Frankly, I disagree with the 6-month buffer, right? I think his goals are misaligned to mine.
Yeah.
Because for me, I wouldn't wait until I'm fully in love with a person, or I wouldn't wait until I'm deeply in love with a person to propose, right? For me, it would come down to, do I like this person? Is this person compatible with me? Do they share the same interests as me? Do they share the same world strategy as me, right? Like the political stratagems and things like that.
Worldview.
Yeah, essentially, right? Are we compatible to the point where we can both be in a room and not annoy each other, essentially?
Yeah.
Right? Like that. And alhamdulillah, I was successful with you. Right? It all went according to Allah's plan.
Alhamdulillah.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, whoever it is that you marry, whatever is already written is written.
Yeah.
Right? So I wouldn't stress about that too much.
Yeah.
If it's a person that you're meant to marry and then end up divorcing, that's all part of Allah's plan. Right?
Yeah, you're right, because he's very concerned about whether or not it's going to result in divorce, and he's trying to head off the path of divorce by saying, okay, I need to give myself enough time to make sure that I get to know somebody long enough, which is what I think where his 6 months come from. I get to know somebody long enough to be able to have more vetting time. But I think I agree with everything that you said, right? Everything you said makes perfect sense. That
everything's already written. That's like legitimately, that's just my mindset, is to not stress too much about that.
Yeah.
Right? The thing that what you want to do is you want to tie your camels, right?
Multiple?
So multiple camels.
All four camels.
But we're not talking about wives here, right?
Okay.
One camel is like education.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Another camel is like financial stability, things like that.
In Shaa Allah, yeah.
So you want to focus on the things that you can control, right? Focus on the you.
Yeah.
Make yourself better, improve yourself, right? And if you do that, then you'll be able to pretty much handle anyone,
Yeah.
Like, even if there's one particularly egregious wife that's really annoying.
Why are you looking at me that way?
I'm not looking at you at all.
Okay.
If there is one particular wife that's really annoying, and you have like the ability, you just like, hey, leave the house for a bit, go on a shopping spree.
Yeah.
Make yourself happy.
Yeah.
Or be like, all right, let's go to the mall or something like that. You'll be able to find ways to cope with whatever life throws at you if you focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, honestly, like what I would say is like he should wait until he's finished.
I think again, I agree with everything you said, but I think what's the most important thing that you said was at the beginning, that your objectives are different from his stated objectives.
Yeah.
Right. Because his stated objective here for this gentleman is that companionship. He's looking for companionship.
He thinks he is. I think that's the case.
Yeah.
Because I was in his position as well when I was young.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Before a man is married, they're in love with the concept of getting married.
Yeah.
Right? But once the man is married, they realize that marriage is so much more.
Yeah.
Right? They realize that marriage is both a burden and a relief.
Okay.
It's a responsibility. He and I'm sure other young men of the younger generation, when they think of marriage, they'll see the positives, but they'll not realize that there's also struggles that come with that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, of course, he's already thinking ahead with regards to potential divorce or trying to prevent potential divorce. Companionship is not what you should be focusing on, because companionship comes naturally. You can't aim for companionship. You have to aim for relatability and what's the word?
Compatibility.
Compatibility.
Yeah.
That's what you have to look for. If you find something that's if you find someone that's compatible with you, it's very easy to be their companion.
That's beautiful. Right? And I think, what did they say? That's a bar? That's a bar. That's a bar. Right?
Fire.
It's what it is. Yeah. So, the gentleman here, he said it himself. He said, a big part of me wants to start speaking with a potential marriage partner, most likely through friend family connection, but I'm also worried that I'll underestimate the commitment and responsibility that comes with it. I think that's it. That's the line. So if this gentleman had been my client, right, and he had sent me this question, I would have said, brother, because of that line, I'm telling you that you're correct. You are underestimating the commitment and the responsibility that comes with marriage for both men and for women.
Yeah.
Right. It's very beautiful and it's very fulfilling. But at the same time, you have to be very cognizant of the amount of responsibility that comes with it. For example, let's say you get your dream job, right? You've been studying for it, you're ready for it, and you get your dream job. And they tell you, they tell you, you know what? We think that we like you a lot. Instead of the entry level position, let's move you up into one of the acronym titles. Let's move you up into a CFO position, COO position.
A COO, I would actually, because I'm a fan of pigeons. So that's where I'd want to go.
Because of the cool?
Yeah.
The cool. Okay. COO. All right. Let's say let's upgrade you to one of the COO positions. Now now you're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You're nervous because you're not really sure what this position entails. You're excited, right? There's going to be a lot of reward, financial reward, a lot of prestige, a lot of status that comes with it. But what about this responsibility? What does that mean for me? What do I have to know? What is it that I need to know that I don't yet know that I don't know?
Mm-hmm.
What are the known unknown? What are the unknown unknowns in the worlds of
the known knowns and the unknown unknowns and the unknown knowns?
In the words of Donald Rumsfeld, right? Before most of your time.
And the known unknowns.
Exactly. So it's all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to be realistic about what is the responsibility of a marriage entail, let's talk about that for a little bit.
There's the Muslim answer, which is, of course, you're not going to accept that position, right?
Yeah.
Because you're taking on not just yourself, but you're also taking on everyone else under your leadership.
Yeah.
And if you're not qualified to do that, it's not for you to ruin their lives.
Yeah.
Just so that you can. And this is now moving on to the non-Muslim position. Of course, take that position.
Yeah.
Because what that means is that even if that company goes under, you are now a CEO, COO or a CEO, whatever. You have that rank in your resume, and you can apply for other positions with other companies. And that's what people are doing in this day and age.
Yeah.
The CEOs, they will hop from business to business.
Yeah.
Right? They'll ride a business, they'll have it crash to the ground, and then they'll just golden parachute to another business, get hired on as CEO of that business, and then they'll just keep making money on money, while behind them are failed businesses.
Yeah.
Right?
Broken hearts.
Yeah. Failed businesses, broken hearts, people are losing their jobs, everything.
Yeah.
But they're making money, and that's all that matters. And that's un-Islamic.
So if we take it back to the analogy of marriage, right? Analogy of marriage, that's a lot of broken hearts behind you, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be realistic about what the responsibility is that comes. So this is always an abstract concept. And I know it was abstract for me before I got married. So let's answer the question a little bit. So what is the responsibility of marriage? What does that mean? So he's a young man.
There's a reason why marriage is half your deen.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge responsibility.
Okay.
It's huge. So you don't want to just go into it all willy-nilly.
Okay. Describe this burden that I am upon you.
You are a huge burden upon me because I have to protect you, right? I have to pay for you, right? I have to feed you, clothe you. What's the other word? House you, I guess.
Yes.
I have to protect your dignity, your honor, at the expense of my dignity, my honor, and my life.
Oftentimes, yes.
If I'm asleep and someone tries to break into the house, I'm the one that goes out there and risks my life. You know? And if you have a job, you get to keep all your money. I can't even ask you for any. Right?
Yes.
And what do I ask for? All I ask for is a little bit of food.
From time to time.
Just feed me enough to keep me alive. And I'm a content man. I literally am okay with eating anything except for chickpeas.
All right. There's no reason.
And eggplants.
Literally the only two things that I make for you constantly. This is the first time hearing that you don't like chickpeas, by the way. Or to shake that off. Okay, so you listed the burdens that are outlined by our religion.
Yeah.
Right? The responsibilities that are outlined by our religion. So if I were just to expand upon that a little bit, to give you an analogy, let's say that this young man, so he was probably likely, let's just assume the general, that he was raised in a household with parents.
Yeah.
And may or may not have younger siblings. Let's say he has younger siblings. Let's say that his parents are doing well and fine. Tabarakallah. Let's just assume that his parents are doing well and fine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect him, protect his whole family. I mean. But let's say his parents handed over the reins for a little bit and said, "You take charge for a little bit. We're just gonna take a back seat and not be bothered about any of the things for a year." So that means no food is going to enter this house unless you bring it in. And there's not going to be any money to buy any of the food unless you go and make the money to buy that food. If there are bills, you need to know what the bills are, all of the account numbers, all of the passwords that go with that. You have to understand your siblings. They're younger than you. What are all of their activities? What are all their needs? You take over all of that. You be your dad for a bit.
For the majority of people
Yeah.
who would be put in that position, the majority of the people would end up on the street.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But I'm saying just to have an idea, an understanding, to make an abstract concept a little bit more concrete.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to understand what is the responsibility that comes with marriage, to be your parent for a while, right? For your parent to, all of their responsibilities, all of the things that they do in the house that you don't even feel because your parents is still taking care of it. You just naturally have sugar and ketchup in the house. It's because someone had to go buy it and make sure that it doesn't run out, Right now you have utilities in the house. Your parent is aware of how much is the utility bill, what are the account numbers associated with that utility bill, what are the due dates, all of these things, all of this mental load, and going to go get the things to be able to make that happen, like financially. And we've just spoken about the financial burden so far, but to be your parent for a bit. Now, if we add on top of that the emotional burden, because in today's age, very few of us have access to community the way that our previous generations did, right? Very few people have access to through third spaces. There's this concept called third spaces. Have you heard of that?
No.
All right. So people speak about first and second spaces being going to work, like places where you go other than your house. So your house is your first place, I believe. And then your second place is where you go to make money or to learn how to make money. So work or school. So very few people have third spaces anymore.
You're talking about like hangout spots with their friends?
Just places where communities gather, whether it's a place of worship, whether it's some kind of community center where you have regular access to people outside of your house and a place of work. So because those third spaces don't really exist, there's a lot more isolation.
Yeah.
So the reality for a lot of couples, especially when you first get married, is that a lot of the time that you spend is going to be with you and with your spouse, plus or minus some immediate family members from time to time. So what that means is that there is an emotional burden, right? So that means there's going to be the burden of this new person who lives in your house, who comes with all of their baggage, right? No matter how you feel about them, no matter how much you love them, to the moon and back, they still are a human being with their emotional baggage. This is a person you're now going to have to learn, right? What are their triggers? What are their emotional needs, right? And how do I meet those emotional needs mutually? They're gonna have to learn yours as well, but don't forget that you're gonna have to learn theirs. See, when people talk about companionship, just like this gentleman did here, what we're thinking about is this other person meeting our emotional needs, but we forget the other half of that equation, which is I'm also going to have to meet their emotional needs.
Yeah.
Not to mention all of the other burdens we just discussed with the finances, with the in-laws, with all of the things that come with marriage. So when he says, I believe that I'm underestimating the commitment and responsibility, yes, most of us are, brother, right? And that brings us to the question of, well, how will I know that I'm ready for marriage? When will I actually be ready for marriage? So from a man's perspective, you give a man's perspective and I'll give a woman's perspective. So as men, how do you know that you're ready for marriage? You're like, this is the day. You
never actually really know if you're ready for marriage, because there's always worries, even right up until the day of the nikah.
Yeah.
Where you don't know if you're good enough, right? And even after you get married, and even after she tells you 100 times that she loves you, right? You still never know if you're good enough, right? So I would say it's not about knowing if you're ready for marriage. It's about thinking that you're ready for marriage. It's about understanding the risks and feeling like, okay, you know what? I want to take these risks with her. That's what I think.
That's beautiful. With a specific her, or just like a generic her, like an idea of her?
You keep tying this back to yourself.
No.
It seems that you're talking from a position of insecurity.
No.
how would you like to address this concern of yours?
Yes, but also let's that's not what I was saying. What I meant is for the brother and for men in general, right?
Yeah.
Because it's important that you come to these conclusions independent of any specific woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you decide that you're ready for marriage, and most men do this naturally. They decide that they're ready for marriage and then go seek out a spouse. Does that make sense? Rather than meet a woman and say, okay, because of her, I am now ready for marriage. Do you see? Am I right or wrong? Or
I would say I think for the most part you're correct. Yeah.
yeah.
There are niche instances where a woman will approach a man and be like, "Yo, you fine," and he's like, "I'm ready to get married."
This is the one.
I can't believe I actually got a compliment. I've never gotten a compliment before in my entire life.
This is the
one. This is the one.
Okay. All right. Just no other factors are important. Just
you know how far someone can get complimenting a man?
This is dangerous information.
Men do not get compliments.
This is very dangerous information.
Yeah, if you genuinely like someone,
yeah,
you give them a compliment, and men do not get compliments. Yeah. But of course, you keep it halal.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to compliment him on something that you shouldn't know about.
No, of course not. You compliment your spouse. There you go.
Yeah.
But most men make the decision before before they meet a specific woman, and then you go out and make the decision. And then you go out and meet the spouse after having decided that you're ready, right? From the perspective of women, okay, so now I'm understanding what I asked you to do. I asked you to speak on behalf of an entire gender. My apologies. Because now...
no, you don't have to apologize. I do that on the regular.
You just do that? Because now I'm understanding how impossible a task that is.
I stay trifling.
Okay. I am now understanding how impossible a task that is.
For women, yeah, because women are complex creatures. But men are simple. We're easy to read.
Okay.
We're all one hegemony.
It's the general is the general. The general is the specific. They're one.
Yeah.
It's the one and the same.
We're all followers and leaders.
Okay.
Every single one of us.
Interesting.
You take me down, another one will take my place. Guaranteed.
Immediately. Okay.
I volunteer as tribute.
For what, though? Just in general?
Mean? What are you talking about?
Tribute in general? Or
life is a fight.
Okay.
Life is a struggle.
So for the women, if we take it back to the sisters, for myself and from speaking to clients, a woman is ready for marriage when she knows who she is. Right? When she has some grounding and understanding, what, and not when I say who she is, that's a very big term, but understanding what makes her tick. What are the things that she likes? What are the things she doesn't like? What are the things that she wants to do? What are her values? When you have some clarity on the foundations that start to color in the picture of who you are, like who is Zahra, right? Then at that point, she will be more likely to be ready for marriage. Before that point, we might think that we're ready for marriage, because I know I certainly thought I did when I didn't know what was what.
Yeah.
We might think we're ready, but we're really, really not. We're really not, because like the brother alluded to here in that previous episode of how to know she's a good woman, and we've spoken about it many times. Marriage is very taxing on women, is a very heavy burden, heavy responsibility on women, and to try to figure out who you are while also being a wife and a mom is nearly impossible task, right? The roles of wife and mom tend to overshadow that. So that's why I always recommend make sure you know who you are before you walk towards marriage.
It makes perfect sense to me, legitimately.
Yes.
That women are only ready to get married when they figure out who they are.
Yeah.
Because there's so many stories on Reddit about a man dating a woman. Now, this is the non-Muslims on the Reddit, right?
Yeah.
A man dating a woman, and a woman just leaving him, going to Brazil to find herself.
There you go.
Yeah.
That happens.
It's a real problem.
It's very sad.
We're losing women to Brazilians.
Just Brazil?
Yeah.
That's the prototype standard.
Tall, dark, and handsome, right?
Okay.
Isn't that all three right there?
I mean, that's why I married you.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? I'm tall, dark, and handsome.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, so hopefully I'm just speed reading through the brother's
Oh,
question.
Wonderful question.
Yeah, it was really great. I like it. It was very comprehensive, and I think a lot of the men and probably a lot of the women have the same question and will benefit
No,
from
I
this.
certainly benefited from that question.
In Shaa Allah. Are you wondering whether you're ready for marriage?
No, it was a joke. Because I keep making jokes about getting other wives.
I've noticed. You think that I haven't noticed, but I have noticed.
I've certainly benefited from that.
All right. Let's just shake it off. That aside. Yeah, I'm just speedy reading through, and hopefully, inshallah, we've answered your question.
Inshallah.
Hopefully you've benefited from this from this podcast episode. If you yourself have a question that you would like to be featured on our podcast, there's always a link in the about section on our YouTube channel, right? You can always find that there. There's also a link on our website. I'm so excited we get to say that now. On our website on www.zarahassancoaching.com / the Muslim Marriage Podcast.
Yeah.
That you can also find it on there, inshallah. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Is there anything else that we're missing?
Yeah, actually, I think they did a disservice with printers having square-shaped ink cartridges. They should have actually had L-shaped ink cartridges. They could have just called it the link up.
I can never predict what you're gonna say. That keeps things fun. I like it. Was there anything else that we missed?
No.
Okay. I'm so glad we covered that.
We ran that well dry.
Yeah, it was a close one.
The inkwell.
All right, so Jazaa K'Allah Khayr, thank you so much if you have made it this far. If you haven't already, be sure to get your free copy of the compatibility guide. If you're a young Muslim woman and you're interested in the single to wifey intensive coaching program, check out the link in the description. Jazaa K'Allah Khayr. We wish you a wonderful week. And assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.